Okay, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on managing your haulers for maximum efficiency. My name is Kevin McSweeney, and I'm the Client Success Manager here at OptiHaul. And in my role here in OptiHaul, one of my main focuses is on helping our customers to get the most value from our solutions. Now, today's topic is something I'm particularly interested in, as I've previously managed milk haulers myself before. So hopefully you'll get some useful practical insights from today's session. I'm also delighted to be joined today by our CEO, Gary Gallagher, who I'll ask to introduce himself shortly and who will give a brief overview of what we do here at Optal. But before that, I'll quickly run through today's agenda. So what are we going to cover today? So three main areas. So the first one being how route optimization is typically used in dairy logistics. Second topic is how comparing planned versus actual routes exposes hidden inefficiencies. And finally, how using route optimization as a benchmarking tool can improve your hauler's performance. So Gary, welcome. Thanks for joining today. You might introduce yourself and give us an overview of what we do here at Optahall.
Yeah, hi Kevin. Just checking you can hear me okay?
All good? Yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks Kevin, and thanks for organizing this webinar. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Gary Gallagher. I'm the CEO and founder of Optihall. So I'll give a quick introduction about what we do for anyone that's new to these webinars. So. Uh, at Optal, we help dairy cooperatives and milk marketing boards, processors, and sometimes even the milk haulers themselves to reduce costs in farm to plant milk transport. So we use software to help reduce miles, reduce fuel costs, reduce emissions, and hopefully reduce time spent on manual planning. And how do we do that? Well, we use some pretty cool software algorithms, which I won't go into too much detail on today, but ultimately we have a software platform designed specifically for milk and dairy. So it knows how dairy works. So it knows about milking times, collection windows at the farms, farm access restrictions, tanker sizes, milk types, turnaround times at the plant, the number of bays at the plant, and the CIP cleaning requirements. All of those things specific to milk, while our software platform knows about it, and that's how it's able to go into the detail to find those inefficiencies that Kevin mentioned earlier on. So that's what we do. Now we work with customers across Ireland, UK, Europe, and North America, both the USA and Canada. So we have customers ranging from maybe 30 or 40 farms managing, maybe 50 loads a day, all the way up to a little over 3,000 farms managing, 300 or 400 loads a day. So we work with a wide variety of customers. Um, some of them use our products in different ways. Some of them use it from a strategic perspective. Some of it use it for their day-to-day operations. But ultimately, we help all of our customers to try and make this part of the dairy supply chain more efficient. So we look at it, we break it down into two areas, which some of our customers, the farm to plant milk transport is broken down into two specific areas, certainly the larger ones. In some cases, it's all done in one go. But we look at milk collection optimization, which is really the focus of today's webinars, and what Kevin's is going to take us through. And that is, as the name suggests, that is working out the most efficient way to plan the assembly of milk loads based on all of the farms and all of the pickups that go into a particular load, um, and planning that across a large fleet of milk tankers in the most efficient way. So that is our core milk collection optimization product. And in some cases, um, depending on their size, that's changed regularly. But in a lot of cases, because because changing milk collection routes means changing the cadence and the times that you pick up from farms. In a lot of cases, this is done more strategically, and maybe not maybe done a few times a year. Um, so that the collection routes themselves can stay pretty static. And then once that is tightened up and optimized, then we move on to the next stage, which is sometimes called allocation, is sometimes called load scheduling. Whatever it might be, this is purely focused on that last part of the journey, which is the transporting of the full load. So it's already assembled, but the full load from last pickup to plant. And that is a separate module that we do, which is our intelligent load scheduling. So that allocates the supply, so the routes, the pickup routes to demand, whether it's from owned plants or third-party customer plants. So it does some nice, intelligent, automated matching, and then creating schedules and dispatch which are sent out usually in a more efficient way than what they've been done before. So that's it. We provide sort of end-to-end optimization embedded in those two processes, getting the milk from the farm assembled into a load, and then from a full load to the plant. But I think for today, we're really going back to the farm pickup optimization topic. Kevin, is that
That's
accurate
correct.
to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gary. So look, let's jump straight into it. So let's look at the current approach, and I suppose what I've seen across the industry and most operations are following a similar approach. So the routes are planned, the routes are executed, and they're repeated. And usually what I'm seeing is performance is usually measured on the service. So was the milk collected? Was it on time? Was there any issues? But the issue is the efficiency within those routes is often less visible. And that's the part that a lot of companies are missing out on. Because really, what we're seeing on the ground is we can't really treat performance as being the service that our people that are providing. So while planning routes is absolutely vitally important, it's just the first step in the whole process because planning the routes itself doesn't guarantee efficient execution because we all know things change day to day. We have delays on farm, there's congestion at the plants, there's driver decisions. For example, did these drivers follow the schedule that they were sent out? So were the suppliers picked up in the correct sequence that they were supposed to be picked up? Did they arrive at these suppliers at the right time? Did they arrive at the correct factory that they were supposed to be getting to and at the right time? And look, all of these decisions have a big impact on the overall efficiency of this schedule. So really the question becomes how close is our actual performance to what should be achievable? So what we do is we actually need to measure what was planned versus what actually happened. And this is where the real insight comes from. So this is where we're going to see where this inefficiency lies. So the question you might be all wondering is how do we do that? So it's actually quite a straightforward process. It's a process that I actually did myself in a previous role using the OptiHaul software. So the process is broken down into a couple of steps. So the first step is, okay, let's assume that we have all our master data inside in our system. The first step then is we import the actual route data. So over a chosen time period, we upload exactly what's after happening. So we have the exact routes, the vehicles that were used, and the plants that it was delivered to. So once we are happy that that's imported, we then run an optimized plan using the same parameters. So we have the same volume, the same suppliers, same vehicles, and we have the same factory demands. So in effect, we should be comparing like for like here. There shouldn't be any variables really. And then once we have that plan optimized, this is where we get into the real inside of it because we start analyzing what the gap is. So typically things that we find when we start comparing the two is we find that there's often a reduction in distance that is traveled. We find that there's less loads required to pick up the same amount of milk. And even in some cases, there's less vehicles required to pick up the same amount of milk. And maybe some of the other in-depth things that we see are we see that some of the drivers are arriving at these suppliers outside of the supplier's opening hours. So you can imagine then this is causing a delay at supplier one, and it has a domino effect all the way through the rest of that person's day because they're late on the first call, it's pushing out the rest of them. Then they're arriving at the factory, and you're also affecting the schedule from other hauliers. So it really has a knock-on effect the whole way along the supply chain. And I suppose one of the key and probably most important step in this process then is monitoring these results over time. So while it's absolutely great to measure them one week, where the real value comes, it's from measuring them consistently over the period of time, because that's where we see where the real gaps are. But it also gives you the chance to highlight these to the haulier to try and improve their performance. Because look, ultimately, we want the haulier to be running as efficiently as possible because we know that there's a direct correlation between the distance that is traveled and the rates that haulier is being paid. So ultimately, we want them to be running efficient. It saves them money, but also it saves the company money on the other hand as well. So it's a vital important step, and I can't emphasize it enough the value that can be gained by having this data at the hand on a regular basis. Okay.
Kevin, just before you move on, just the
hmm
first step is important, as you said, importing actual route data. Just for the people on the call, what data do they need to import, and where would customers typically get this data?
Yeah, so typically our customers have it on their milk management system. So this data, it's five key information points. So what we need is the route name, the vehicle ID, the supplier ID, the date and time, um, the volume, and the factory it was delivered to. So it's quite simple approach um, that can be easily replicated over time. So there's not really too much work to do with it. Now, I will say some of our more proficient customers, how they operate this process is they have an API interface set up. So every week, these particular customers' data is automatically sent to our system. So it avoids people having to do it manually. System or the information is already there. We can run the scenario and you have results fairly quick. So I would be a strong advocate for that. But I mean the let's say the basic way we do it by Excel is quite reasonable. It's quite easy to do, but in terms of efficiency, pardon the pun, is the API interface is a very worthwhile.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to jump into our system. So I just wanted to show a quick demo of our system and how this actually works. I think it's more impactful to see how it's working live, more so than theory. So just bear with me and I'll jump in here. Okay, can you see my screen now, Gary?
Yep. We can see your demo system now. Yep.
Cool. So this is the screen that you'd see when you log into our system. So what you have here, it's a set of suppliers. Um, we have our factories here, and we have our vehicles over here on the left-hand side. Now, in the interest of time, I have a route plan already uploaded into this, but to simply upload the Excel file, we just go in here and you click on the upload Excel, and this will build your routes inside in our system for you. So let's look at these actual complete routes and what they look like inside in our system. So you can see here, these are all the suppliers. and all the routes are drawn in. And if I bring your attention over to the left-hand side, you can see the three tankers that are here. Within each tanker, then we have the routes that are associated with it. So if we click down along through them, you can see the sequence in which these were picked up, the times, and the volumes associated with each load. So very useful to visualize exactly where all these trucks are going. And look, some of the things that usually come up is there's kind of crisscross and crossover between other tanks. So quite a useful application in being able to view these on the map yourself. But what's really useful in here is what we call a route summary. So what we have are key metrics that a lot of our customers have requested to have at ease when you log into our system, so you have an overview of what's actually happening with a particular hauler. So just to go through them, so we have our distance here for the 2 days. We have the time that it took for this haulier. We have a cost. We have our route count. We have our load count. We have our tanker fill. Um, Here we have the volume of milk that we collected, and we have our unit cost and our CO2 emissions. But if I bring you down to the warning section and maybe just touch briefly on what's happening here. So these are violations of parameters that we have set up for this particular hauler. So what it's saying is when these trucks arrived at, for example, this first supplier, it's outside of the agreed opening times. So this usually then leads to the likes of delays. Farmers not happy because the truck is arriving early, and causing substantial delays to that driver that shouldn't really be happening. Some of the other issues that we see, there's a total collection time warning here. So this vehicle is out for longer than what it should be. And some of the other ones, so we can see that there's a factory warning that this particular factory received too much milk on this day. So what this allows you to do then when you're recording this is that you can go back to these hauliers and you can question them and say, listen, why are these things happening? Is there a particular reason why you're arriving early or you're arriving late at this supplier, or you're arriving late at this factory, or you weren't even supposed to go to this factory? So why are these things happening? So very important and very useful tool to have. So that's the actual route. So these are routes that are actually completed. Now, if I jump into the optimized routes. Now we need to bear in mind here now again that this is the same parameter. So we have the same amount of vehicles, we have the same suppliers. So we should be comparing like for like here. So again, you have your tankers and the routes associated with each one. Now let's look at our route summary in this one, because this is actually quite interesting. So if we look through our key metrics, the first one here, so we can see our distance, it's significantly reduced from the actual routes. Our time is reduced. The cost is also reduced. Now, our vehicle count is actually the same. So the system is telling us we actually need these vehicles, but we could be doing it in a more efficient manner. The load count, it's actually the same on day two. It's slightly reduced on day one. So we have a load less here. And here we have our tanker fill. So on average, 93%. But I suppose the most important part here is the volume. So we have the exact same volume. So we are sure that all of this milk that was supposed to be collected has been collected. Okay, so let's jump to the interesting part, comparing the two. So let's jump into the comparison tool. Okay, so we have our two route plans here now. So on the top, we have the optimized routes. On the bottom, we have the routes that were actually completed. So as you can see, a significant reduction in the distance traveled here. Nearly 26% reduction in distance, so quite substantial. The time taken was significantly reduced. Our cost has reduced, CO2 has reduced. Our vehicle count has remained the same, but our tanker fill has also increased. So quickly looking at this scenario, I can tell that there's an issue here with the sequencing that this milk has been collected on, because we shouldn't have such a gap between what was actually happening versus the optimized route. How do they do that? well, number one, they have the loads are more full, so we can see an average a 3% increase in the tanker fill. But also we can see that the routing must be significantly improved that we can have this much of a reduction. So very useful metrics here. Now, these metrics are requested from our existing customers, but if there's other metrics that need to be included or any request, we can absolutely customize it to each customer's preference. But these really are the main ones that we currently use. Okay, I'm just going to jump back to the slides here. So then I just wanted to briefly touch on some of the best practices and what I have found from my own point of view worked well, but also from what some of our other customers find work well for them. So I suppose tracking the KPIs regularly. So I would encourage everyone that does this to do it on a weekly basis. Um, because what that enables, it enables you to have monthly performance reviews with your hauliers. And the benefits of that are twofold. So from your point of view, you get the chance to ask the haulier to many different reasons why there is these violations are happening or why their performance isn't very close to what should be achievable. But on the other hand, it also gives the haulier a chance to communicate with you. So you might be asking him why you're arriving at this supplier at a certain time, and there could be a genuine reason for it. So when you have two-way communication like this over time, you're also building up your database. So next week when you go back in to run it, and if you have updated a certain supplier or a certain factory with whatever genuine reasons there might be, that violation isn't going to be there next week. So your plan should be even more accurate than it was the week before. So we keep building on that. And look, we're building a relationship as well. But but what it also does by collecting all of this information is when we're having these conversations, they're based on hard facts. We're not having we're not having conversations about assumptions that may or may not be happening on the road. Um, so I really think this is of huge benefit, and it's something that I have been a strong advocate for over the last few years, and I think there is real benefits to be got from monitoring this over time. But what else I have found this to be really useful for is around the area of supply management. So if we take, for example, in a certain area, if milk volume has significantly increased and we can see certain routes are really stressed every week, they're maxed out, the truck is doing the maximum amount of time, the loads are really full, that gives you the opportunity to act and to maybe, put in another tanker into that area to relieve that stress. But also on the other hand, if we can see that there's a significant decrease in volume in another area, it could afford you the opportunity to maybe retire some of the older equipment and move around some of the newer equipment, to make the whole operation more efficient. So, so look, really valuable insights to be got from that. Um, and another area that I wanted to touch on is around power negotiations. So, if you imagine you're recording all of this data on a weekly basis, you're coming into a contract negotiation at the end of the year. You have all the evidence from the year how this hauler is performing. So, what is his level of efficiency? You have it all, so you can negotiate with him. I mean, if this particular hauler is coming to you and if he's looking for, let's say, 4, 5, 6% increase, but you can see that he's a 10% efficiency rating, you can say to him, well, listen, look, I can see that you have 10% to get here. So I'm not going to give you 6%. You're going to get that 10% for yourself and we renegotiate next year. So that's one area that I found useful for myself. I used it a few times. So very handy to have. Um, so that's that's pretty much it for me. So maybe just to recap on what we covered today. So look, from my point of view, look, planning alone isn't enough when it comes to efficiency. We can't assume that just because it was planned, it was the most efficient way to do it. I would say the biggest opportunity is in the gap. So analyzing what actually happened versus what should be achievable. And I would encourage anybody that does use route optimization to not just to use it as a planning tool, but to use it as a benchmarking tool to improve the whole performance of your fleet. So with that, that's pretty much from me, I think.
Thanks, Kevin. I have just one, well, two questions, one two-part question. So it's back to the question I asked. So I've probably opened Pandora's box here, but the question is, can this data be taken from a producer payroll system? Which the answer is yes, right? I think you mentioned that. So
Yeah,
absolutely, the latest actual routes or historical routes will be shown there, especially for those customers who track it using a mobile manifest app or indeed data from the pumps.
yeah,
Um, and does that data need to include the mileage, or does the Optihol system calculate the mileage?
yeah. So the off-the-haul system will calculate the mileage for you.
Okay,
So
so
that's
so
that's one of the benefits of our system as well. Yeah,
so we just need to import the pickup times and the pickup volumes, and the system will do everything from there.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay, okay, very good. Okay, well then I think just my summary from it is of course a solution like Optihol can be used by people managing their own trucks and their own fleet because they can directly affect mileage and fuel costs um, and control it in their own fleets. But a good majority of our customers actually use all third party haulers or some third party haulers, and it's very much a solution to um, encourage and promote efficiency in your third-party contractors, and that benefits everyone ultimately. And I guess, especially given the times that we live in, and any reduction in mileage in an operations cost is going to benefit the hauler as much as the co-op, right?
for sure. Yeah,
Okay, we may have one more question, sorry, coming in. So, can you set a demand point at the processing plant, e.g., processor A can only receive 200,000 liters of milk per day?
yeah. We can do that. We can set the demand for however many plants you need to go to. So for this purpose, we would send the same demand as what was actually completed. So we're comparing like for like. But if you want to open it up to run scenarios like a lot of our customers do, you can absolutely set different demands for different factories. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that's indeed how this, so it's a good question. That's indeed how the system works. You set the demand, we have the supply, and the system works out how to which supply from which farm should go to which plant in the most optimal way. So good question, and hopefully that answered it. I think that's all the questions for now, Kevin.
Very good. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining, and thank you, Gary, for joining as well. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon.
Great stuff. Thanks, everyone. Have a great
Thank you.
day. Have a great evening.